What if I told you that disappearing for a while could be the smartest thing you've ever done? That disappearing from the noise, the rush, and the demands of the world, even for a few days, can give you back a strength that no one would recognize? Maybe that sounds radical, but sometimes true progress requires disruption. A conscious pause, a chosen silence, a moment of isolation not as an escape, but as a reunion. Because there's a big difference between hiding from the world and preparing to come back in one piece. This video is not about running away. It's about coming back different. About breaking old ties, dissolving limiting beliefs, silencing internal noise, and reappearing with an authenticity that scares even you. It's about leaving the scene to rebuild behind the scenes. You know that feeling of always being on the brink, of carrying invisible burdens that no one sees, of smiling while something inside you screams for change? The time has come to look at this with courage and act. Here, you will learn how to put all of this on the ground. No magic formulas, no plastic self-help. Let's explore ancient Stoic principles that, if taken seriously, can restructure your mind, redirect your values, and take you to a new level of freedom. Freedom that does not depend on country, nor on money, nor on the approval of others, but rather clarity, self-discipline, self-knowledge, and a deep willingness to face discomfort as part of healing. Get ready to reflect, be uncomfortable, and maybe finally move. This video is an invitation to unlearn what keeps you stuck, to make peace with silence, to discover that, often, the answer you seek so much is in what you have always avoided feeling. But be careful, this content is not about pretty phrases to write down in your notebook. It's a mirror, and, like any honest mirror, it can show you something you didn't want to see, but needed. If you're tired of surviving on automatic, of chasing goals that aren't even yours, of adapting to be accepted, then maybe it's time to disappear a little. Disappear to think, to feel, to rebuild yourself with intention. Because disappearing, when done well, is not the end. It's rebirth. Are you ready to disappear and be reborn unrecognizable? How many times have you felt lost, even surrounded by people? Sometimes the world seems like a stage where everyone performs, except you. Authentic stoicism begins there, in the discomfort of realizing that you are living to please, to respond, to survive. When we look inside, we find an emptiness that can scare, but also free. It is in this internal silence that the chance to start over lives. The Stoics did not talk about perfection, but about daily practice. They didn't wear marble armor, they bled. They lost, they cried. And yet, they remained faithful to their values. Reconnecting with your true self requires courage to stop following maps that others have drawn. It's about ripping up the script and writing a new one, aligned with who you really are, not who they expect you to be. A good exercise is to start the day with a question: what do I expect from myself today? And what am I trying to accomplish that isn't even mine? This simple daily reflection reveals how much we are living automatically. By doing this exercise, you begin to distinguish what comes from your heart and what comes from fear. And, believe me, living so as not to disappoint others is the quickest recipe for becoming disappointed in yourself. Internal reconnection also involves the courage to revisit old pain. Those traumas you buried in a hurry, they still live there. Stoicism teaches that it is not about erasing pain, but about facing it with mental strength. Looking inside hurts, but running away is tiring. And every time you delve into what you avoided, you come back with a piece of yourself that was lost. You can't reconnect if you keep comparing yourself. Comparison is a comfortable prison. You look at others and measure yourself by standards you don't even recognize. A Stoic does not seek to be better than so-and-so. He seeks to be more consistent with who he is. Progress is not about beating others. but about stopping betraying yourself. One true step is worth 1,000 forced ones. The world values performance. But what is performance without peace? Reconnecting with what matters requires internal silence. This means going offline, saying no, disappearing for a bit. This isn't weakness, it's self-discipline. Authenticity doesn't scream. She whispers in the midst of the chaos and hopes you have the courage to listen. When you listen, something changes. Start small. Set aside 10 minutes a day to spend with yourself. No cell phone, no music, no one. Just you and your internal noise. At first it's uncomfortable. Then it becomes a compass. Reconnection happens when you allow yourself to be. And being, in today's world, is a revolutionary act. Ready for this silent revolution? In a world that screams, silence has become rebellion. But not that uncomfortable silence I'm talking about, chosen silence. Stoicism teaches us that often the wisest response is to say nothing. It's observing, breathing, and letting the noise outside pass by. Silence is not the absence of sound. It is the presence of yourself. And in this presence, true mental strength is born. You know that impulse to respond right away, defend yourself, hit back? Silence. Not everything deserves an answer. Introspective silence is not passivity, it is self-control. While others burn energy with empty words, the Stoic gathers power in stillness. And when he speaks with purpose. The world listens differently to those who do not speak out of anxiety, but out of clarity. Introspection is a mirror that does not lie. When you shut out the external noise, you begin to hear your own thoughts clearly. And sometimes they aren't pretty, but they are yours. Silence is accepting the discomfort of facing who you are, with your limiting beliefs, fears, and contradictions. And, precisely for this reason, it is the starting point of personal growth. A good Stoic practice is to reserve moments of reflective solitude. It could be a walk without headphones, a long shower, a cup of coffee looking out the window. During these moments, ask yourself, what am I avoiding feeling? What still bothers me and I can't admit it? These types of questions don't come with ready-made answers, but they open doors that you didn't even know existed. Silence is also a filter. It shows who you are and who others are. When you stop filling all the gaps with conversation, you realize who remains out of affinity and who was just there for the noise. The Stoic understands that quality matters more than quantity, including in relationships. Silence reveals, separates, and heals. In the digital environment we live in, silence has become almost a luxury. But it is possible to rescue this space. Try a stimulus fast a day without social media, an afternoon without notifications, an hour without talking. It seems simple, but the effects are profound. You start to notice things that previously went unnoticed. And to be noted, mainly, silencing the world is the first step. Silence the mind, the second. And no, it's not easy, but it is trainable. Start with 3 minutes a day of conscious breathing. Then increase. Don't cover up, lighting, seek presence. Introspection does not make you a saint, but it makes you more whole. And being whole these days is the greatest superpower. Letting go is not abandoning. It's understanding that holding on to what sinks you is not loyalty, it's self-sabotage. Stoicism teaches that we should not love less, but rather love with awareness. What is not under our control needs to be released. When you hold on to someone or something for fear of losing it, you have already lost your freedom. And without freedom, there is no peace. Many people confuse detachment with coldness, but true detachment is mature affection. It's looking at a love and saying, I choose you, but I don't own you. It's looking at a dream and knowing if it's mine, it will be. If not, it taught me. This posture brings lightness. You continue loving, desiring, seeking, but without being attached to the result. And that is liberating. Think about your anxieties. How many of them are born from the attempt to control the uncontrollable? A relationship, an opinion from others, an expectation that you created? The Stoic knows that everything that depends on others is unstable. The only solid thing is the mind itself. Therefore, investing in self-knowledge is more effective than trying to shape the world. To practice detachment, start by questioning your certainties. Do I really need this person to be happy? Do I depend on this work to be valuable? By asking yourself these questions, you begin to separate need from attachment. A practical tip: write down everything you fear losing. Then, reflect on whether these things really define you. Often, what we call love is just attachment to what we already know. The Stoic understands that everything we have is temporary, including the body, titles, assets. Therefore, he lives with presence, but without dependence. He gives himself completely, but is not attached to the return. This is one of the biggest challenges of self-discipline: loving without losing yourself, having without being enslaved, and let go, when necessary, with dignity. Detachment also applies to ideas and beliefs. How many times have you remained silent to support an image? How many opportunities have you missed for fear of changing your mind? Letting go is not giving up. It's making space. When you allow yourself to let go of old patterns, something new is born within you. Transformation does not arrive while you insist on being who you are not. Become friends with the flow. As Epictetus would say, do not wish for things to happen as you wish for them to happen as they happen, and everything will go well. That's what letting go is. It's giving up the illusion of control. It's dancing with life, instead of waging war against it. And in this dance, the less weight you carry, the further you can go. Pain, when welcomed, stops being an enemy and becomes an instructor. Stoicism never promised a life without suffering. On the contrary, he teaches us to wait for pain with serenity and to use it as a tool for transformation. It's not about liking the pain, but understanding what it wants to show us. Because behind every wound, there is a call for personal growth. You don't have to be made of iron. It needs to be integrity. Mental strength does not come from avoiding suffering, but from going through it with awareness. A common mistake is to rebel against pain as if it were unfair. But what if it's just a warning that you're off your path? Have you ever stopped to think that maybe this discomfort is the push you needed to change? Introspection here is key. Ask yourself, what is this pain trying to teach me? Sometimes the lesson is about limits. Other times, about detachment. And there are times when pain reveals how distracted you were from yourself. Acceptance is not conformity. It is about recognizing reality and acting clearly. Whoever accepts what hurts finds power in what remains. Stoic practice suggests that we approach pain as training. Just like a soldier prepares for war even in times of peace, we can use every difficulty as an exercise in resilience. A relationship that ended, a betrayal, a professional failure. All of this can be leverage. As long as you stop asking, why did this happen to me? And start asking yourself, what can I do with this now? Of course it hurts. Of course you will feel weak. But it is exactly at this moment that the transformation begins. The biggest leaps come after the biggest falls. There's no need to be in a hurry. Just presence and discipline. Ataraxia, that unshakable peace that the Stoics sought, does not come from the absence of pain, but from the choice not to be held hostage by it. You feel, but he doesn't surrender. A good habit is to write about pain. Pour it on a paper. Name what bleeds. And then, next to each wound, write an action. Something small, real, that you can do today. Daily reflection, combined with practical action, transforms suffering into fuel. And sooner or later, you look back and realize that the pain turned into strength, that the fall became a foundation. So yes, it hurts, but it hurts for a while. And if you know how to listen, you will come out stronger than you entered. Because Stoicism doesn't take the weight out of life, it strengthens your shoulders. And this silent force, which is born when no one is watching, is what transforms ordinary people into unrecognizable beings. Reflecting daily is like cleaning the mirror of your soul. Without this, you begin to lose yourself, guided by impulses and distractions. The Stoics had the habit of reviewing the day at the end of the night. They analyzed what they did well, what they could have done better, and what they should avoid, not as punishment, but as progress. Because those who don't review, repeat. And whoever repeats it without conscience remains trapped. You don't need an expensive diary or an elaborate ritual. A simple notebook, 5 minutes before bed, and honest questions: did I stay true to my values today? Did I react or act wisely? What did I learn from my mistakes? These questions, when asked sincerely, act as a compass. You stop living on autopilot and start choosing the path with more lucidity. Daily reflection is also a tool for self-compassion. Not every day you will get it right. But when you look at mistakes as part of the process, rather than outright failures, you lighten the burden and strengthen resilience. Introspection brings clarity, and clarity lessens anxiety. Because knowing where you are and where you are going is the first step to walking firmly. This practice also helps identify hidden patterns. How many times do you repeat attitudes that keep you from the life you want? When you write and observe regularly, you begin to notice that certain pains come from the same place. And that is where the opportunity for change arises. No drama, no guilt, just observation and adjustment. This is self-discipline applied to real life. Daily reflection is a ritual of freedom. When you commit to it, you stop being a victim of circumstances and become the author of your story. Even on difficult days, it allows you to learn lessons. Even in victories, it prevents the ego from blinding you. It's like sharpening your sword every day, not for war, but so as not to lose your edge in the face of challenges. You can include a gratitude list at this time. Write down 3 things you were grateful for that day. They don't have to be grand. It could be a hot coffee, a hug, an insight. This simple practice transforms the mind. What is valued multiplies, and what is seen carefully takes on another meaning. Gratitude is not a phrase on a t-shirt. It is a practice of awareness. In the end, daily reflection is an invitation to truth. Not the absolute truth, but yours. It's where you meet, demand yourself with kindness, listen to yourself with respect, and day after day, you become someone more coherent, lighter, and more whole. Because those who listen to each other on a daily basis rarely lose sight of it. Being authentic, nowadays, is almost an act of courage. In a world where everyone tries to look like something, being yourself is scary, but it also frees. Stoicism reminds us that living according to your values, not likes, is the most solid path to inner peace. When you act authentically, even silence has a presence, and your freedom no longer depends on other people's validation. Authenticity begins when you stop adapting to fit. You know that feeling of "I'm not being me." It's the body asking for coherence. There is no point in pretending that everything is fine, wearing masks, or repeating ready-made phrases. The mind feels, the heart charges, and the soul becomes sick. True progress comes when you decide to align thought, word, and action, even if it bothers you, even if it costs you. Living authentically is about challenging the limiting beliefs you have inherited. Maybe they told you that you are too sensitive or that doesn't lead to a future, and you believed. But is it true? The Stoic questions. He does not accept what was imposed. He analyzes, thinks, reevaluates. And when you realize that you were limiting yourself out of fear or convenience, you begin to break chains. One by one. Authenticity is also practical. It's not just a pretty concept. It's saying no when everyone expects a yes. It's choosing a more difficult path because it's the right one. It's not apologizing for being who you are. And, at the same time, it is knowing that you are constantly changing. Because being authentic isn't about being immutable, it's about being true to how you feel now, even if that changes tomorrow. And there's an important detail: being authentic doesn't mean being rude, explosive, or unfiltered. This is impulsiveness, not truth. The Stoic is firm, but not aggressive. He says what needs to be said, with respect and clarity. Freedom is not in saying everything you think, but in not being a prisoner of what others expect you to say. Now that's mental strength. Authenticity requires solitude. You won't always be surrounded by applause when you decide to be yourself. Sometimes it will feel like you are swimming against the current. But that is the price of real freedom. Whoever lives on applause dies in silence. And those who live on their own flourish even when no one sees. Is it lonely? Sometimes. But it's much lighter than carrying a mask. And the closer you get to who you really are, the more your life starts to make sense. Decisions become clearer, the most honest relationships, the most coherent goals. And then, being unrecognizable in the eyes of others becomes a compliment, because you weren't born to repeat anyone. You were born to be whole, even if it takes time, even if it's scary, even if you start over 1,000 times. The heaviest chains are not made of iron, they are made of thoughts. And the worst part, often, we don't even realize we're trapped. Limiting beliefs work like this. You grow up hearing that you are not capable, that you have to please, that this is not for you, and you believe it. Stoicism invites you to break with these ideas. Not with anger, but with lucidity. Because mental freedom starts when you question. You know that internal voice that says it's going to go wrong. She is not your enemy, but she is not your truth either. She is an echo of fear, of the past, of insecurity. The Stoic listens, but does not obey. He observes emotion, but acts with reason. And that takes practice. Every time you act despite fear, a chain breaks. And each broken chain brings you closer to a lighter life. Breaking mental chains is taking charge. It's about stopping outsourcing blame. I'm not like this because of other people. You are what you choose to be now, with what you have. Even if he was injured, even if it's still missing. Self-discipline is key here. Because rebuilding a free mind requires constant effort. It's not fast, but it's possible. And it's worth every second. Try writing down the phrases you repeat most about yourself. I can't do it. I don't deserve it. I'm just like that. Then ask yourself, is this fact or belief? Does it drive you or imprison you? This simple practice reveals where the knots are. And only when we see the chains can we begin to break them. Introspection, in this process, is your best ally. It's also important to surround yourself with different voices. Readings that challenge your way of thinking, people who inspire you to grow. Read Meditations by Marcus Aurelius or Letters to Lucilius by Seneca. These texts are like ancient keys to open internal doors. They don't tell you what to do, but they show you that there is another way to look at yourself and the world. And remember, breaking a chain can hurt. Because the familiar, however uncomfortable it may be, gives a false sense of security. But every real transformation goes through a period of confusion. Continue. As you break these internal prisons, you begin to breathe differently, speaking with more conviction, occupying spaces that I previously avoided. And then, something changes the choices. You start to say yes more to what elevates you, and no to what diminishes you. Start moving with purpose, not in a hurry. Living with more silence on the inside and more firmness on the outside. And without realizing it, he becomes someone unrecognizable even to the old version of himself. Discomfort is a sign of life. No one grows in their comfort zone, no matter how tempting it may seem. Stoicism teaches that, instead of avoiding pain, We should face it as a demanding teacher, one that doesn't relieve you, but prepares you for the real world. Every transformation begins with an inconvenience. It's that tightness in your chest saying you don't belong here anymore. But it's natural to resist. The brain wants security. And safety often means repeating what you know, even if it hurts. The difference is that the Stoic does not confuse security with stagnation. He understands that freedom requires movement, and that the discomfort is the push needed to take the first step, even if it's tremendous. That's what personal growth is: discomfort with purpose. Have you ever felt restless, even when everything seemed right? It's because your soul has already evolved, but your routine is still stuck. Life is trying to pull you forward, but you are holding on to what has already passed. Introspection helps you notice these signs. It shows you that this discomfort is not weakness, it is a sign that there is something bigger waiting for you. Simple practices can help you use discomfort to your advantage. Try getting out of your routine on purpose. Change your path. Talk to someone different. Learn something that you find difficult. When you voluntarily expose yourself to discomfort, you expand your mental force field. Discomfort is no longer the enemy. It becomes training. And those who train in chaos act with serenity. This does not mean seeking suffering. It's choosing discomforts that generate progress. Climb the stairs when you could take the elevator. Telling the truth when it would be easier to remain silent. Face a difficult conversation with maturity. Each of these attitudes seems small, but it builds the foundation of your resilience. And resilience cannot be bought. It builds. In everyday life, accepting discomfort as part of the process is changing the relationship with pain. Instead of thinking this is wrong, I need to escape, you think this is hard, but it will shape me. This shift in mindset changes everything. Because suddenly you stop looking for immediate relief and start looking for real evolution. This is what Stoicism is about: enduring with dignity and transforming with wisdom. And one day, without realizing it, what bothered you no longer paralyzes you. What hurt you today makes you stronger. Because the pain that made you grow is no longer your enemy, it is your mark of courage. And then you realize that the discomfort wasn't the end. It was just the beginning of a new version of you, stronger, more lucid, freer. Have you ever stopped to celebrate something simple today? Like being able to say no, having finished a task, having gotten up even if you didn't feel like it? Stoicism teaches that true progress is made up of small, quiet victories. They are the ones who build the foundation of a solid life. Waiting for big milestones can blind us to what's already happening, and this robs us of our sense of accomplishment. Celebrating small achievements is an act of self-love, and also resistance. In a world that only values the extraordinary, recognizing that washing the dishes when you're anxious is a victory, it's revolutionary. Every time you fulfill something you promised yourself, you reinforce your self-discipline. And discipline feeds self-esteem, much more than external applause. A practical tip: create a ritual to end the day. Before bed, write down 3 things you did well. It doesn't matter if they look silly. The important thing is to train your eyes for progress. It strengthens your mind. Because, deep down, what feeds the spirit are not big events, but the constancy of small steps. And the Stoic knows step taken, step honored. Valuing small victories also reduces destructive self-criticism. Instead of beating yourself up for not having done everything, you start to recognize what you achieved. This changes the energy. The focus moves away from blame and onto responsibility. You begin to realize that you are, indeed, evolving, but in a subtle, organic, real way. And this is much more sustainable than living off peaks. Often, what stops you from moving forward is thinking that it's only worth it when it's perfect. This is a limiting belief, and dangerous ones. Perfectionism paralyzes. The humility of recognizing each step, no matter how small, moves people. Progress is not a straight line. It is a mosaic made of trials, errors, overcoming, and learning. Honor the process. He is yours. Stoicism teaches us to seek excellence, but without rushing. Marcus Aurelius did not become wiser because he always got it right, but because he constantly reflected. Every small attitude aligned with your values was already a triumph. How about applying this to your day? Take a difficult decision calmly, choosing what is right over what is easy. This is victory. This is mental strength in action. And when you value the now, something magical happens. The future stops being a constant pressure. You stop living according to what is still missing and start walking with more presence. Small daily achievements add up. And at the right time, you look back and realize that you have become someone unrecognizable not by one leap, but by 1,000 steps taken with awareness. Life won't get easier just because you asked for it, but it can surprise you when you change the way you look at it. Stoicism does not teach us to run away from pain, but to embrace it with serenity. Accepting difficulties without fear is not surrendering. It is stopping wasting energy fighting the inevitable. It's taking a deep breath, looking straight ahead, and saying, "Okay, we're here. We're going to get through this together, me and I." There are people who think that accepting is giving up, but it's exactly the opposite. Acceptance is the first step to acting lucidly. When you deny reality, you live in a cycle of frustration. But when accepted, it opens up space for real solutions. The Stoic understands that what is happening may not be fair, but it is what it is. And the only thing you have control over is how you respond to it. And accepting doesn't mean liking. It means not paralyzing yourself. Someone's death, the loss of a job, betrayal. These are deep wounds. But what defines your life is not what happens to you, but what you build from it. Pain is not a sign of weakness. It's proof that you're alive. And every time you survive, you reinvent yourself a little more. A good practice is to take a deep breath in the face of chaos and ask a simple question: what depends on me now? This question is a portal. It takes you out of despair and brings you to the present. The mind stops spinning in circles, and you get back on track. This is where mental strength reveals itself. In the midst of the mess, you choose to act with conscience. And that changes everything. Difficulties are part of the journey. There is no growth without pain, nor evolution without conflict. But the fear of suffering often holds us back more than the suffering itself. Ataraxia, that state of stoic inner peace, is not the absence of problem. It is the presence of emotional stability, even when the world falls apart. It's knowing that no matter how bad you are still whole. Accepting your imperfections is also part of this path. You will make mistakes. It will fail. There will be days when you will doubt everything. And that's okay. Life does not demand perfection. It demands presence. When you learn to be gentle with your falls, they stop bringing you down, and they start teaching you. It's this kind of acceptance that sets you free. That turns pain into wisdom. And when you start to live with this awareness, even bad days become meaningful. You stop looking for an easy life and start building a life with purpose. And purpose sometimes goes through dark valleys. But it is there, where all seems lost, that the true Stoic flourishes. Not because he ignores fear, but because you learn to walk with him at your side. You've come this far. He read each principle, felt each word, recognized something of himself in each point. And now comes the most important part: what are you going to do with it? There's no point in understanding introspection, detachment, mental strength, and authenticity if this doesn't become a daily practice. True Stoic wisdom begins in action, in small choices, in the silence you decide to listen, in the thoughts you start to question. So stop for a moment. Close your eyes. Breathe. Ask yourself honestly, in which part of my life am I betraying myself? What bothers me, but I continue to accept it out of fear? What chains still bind me, and what excuses do I use to not break them? Remember, discomfort is not punishment. It's an invitation. Every day, you have the chance to disappear, even if it's inside, and come back with more truth, more clarity, more freedom. You don't need to change everything today, but you can start now, one step at a time, one silence at a time, a truth told to yourself. And if, in a while, someone looks at you and says you look different, smile, because it will be true. And the best part is knowing that this wasn't luck, it was construction. It was you, with yourself, rewriting your story. Now tell me, which of these principles moved you the most? What was the point that gave you a snap, a good discomfort? Comment below with a word that represents what this video awakened in you. It could be freedom, rebirth, courage, or even silence. What matters is that it's yours. And if you feel that this content really helped you, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications, and come with us on this journey of evolution. Because we are not here to appear invincible. We are here to become unrecognizable.